Zach, Donald Rumsfeld used to talk about knowns and unknowns, and we're in a period of known unknowns in that we know that we've got the pandemic, we know that all this money is being spent by central banks and governments, but the unknown is how that all plays out. So are you of a mind that we're seeing all this money get spent because those in the know that there's some bad stuff out there on the horizon, or is it just a matter of keeping the plumbing going and making sure that growth snaps back as quickly as possible?
I think you're in a situation where it's a bit of both. It's the devil you know and the devil you don't. If they didn't do anything, you would have a huge unemployment and it would gradually feed through and you'd have repercussions. And it's better to do what you can now, even if it's not a great thing, in order to prevent a total disaster. So if you can bridge a certain part of it, all the better. And it's looking like that bridge might be extending a little while longer, but at least you're doing something to help people out and help things move along, keep that plumbing going. And if you can get it as short as you can and get that plumbing going to have growth on the other side, then you've achieved your goal. Now you're still going to have a bit of a hangover, but at least you've prevented a total freeze up. So it's a bit of both, but there's certainly a lot of money being thrown at this for sure.
So had they not done anything, the result would have been calamitous.
Absolutely. I mean, you would have had a full shutdown, especially with lockdowns, no jobs, and no follow through. So the multiplier effect, even with the small number of businesses that are open now, is continuing a little bit. If you had closed things down and not put any money into it, it would have completely shut down. And then the ability to restart it, who knows how that would have gone or if it even would have been possible. So it's kind of like, okay, let's do it anyway to try and prevent it and hope that it works, because we know what will happen if we don't do anything and nothing works. So a bit of both, but the effects will be lasting under either scenario for sure.
So investor sentiment, I'm sure you'll agree, has generally been bullish. Do you think that's because investors kind of feel, well, central banks and governments, they had our back in 08, 09. They have our backs now even more so, to an even more extensive extent. So do you think that investors just feel comfortable to take risk because they've got our back?
I do. And I think investors have been trained that way. As you said, now it's going on, let's say, since 2003, 4, interest rates started to come down. That's a good period of time, 15 years, or every single time we get into trouble, more money gets thrown at the system. And now you're starting to get fiscal money or fiscal policy adjusted. It used to be monetary only. But every single announcement that we've seen, or negative, really negative news, more comes in. You're into bond buying. You're into lowering interest rates. You're into government spending, giving checks out. So I think it's even gotten more drastic. But investors have been trained to think that way, that yes, there's going to be someone coming to the rescue. Now, on the other side, you do have interest rates quite low. You look at what bonds are offering, and I'm speaking more about the stock market. Interest rates are low. You're not getting a huge return on bonds. So you look at alternatives, and stocks, even with low dividends, are better. So you gradually get moved into that and moved into spending more, borrowing more, and just keeping the plumbing going, as you say. But so far, we've been trained that any really bad news that comes out will be backstopped. And they seem to find new ways to do it. And every time, this is the last time, but it always seems to continue. So I would agree with that a factor of that bullish sentiment is involved with the Fed and the Bank of Canada and central banks coming to the rescue.
And Zach, when you, on a work day, look at your screen and watch the markets and watch certain stocks that you may hold or maybe not for clients, do you see a pocket of almost sort of a casino element to the markets? And do you find that troubling, or is it just kind of a short-term phenomenon and it's so small it doesn't really matter?
There is a casino element. Generally speaking, in the stocks that we own, they tend to be larger, well-capitalized, financially stable companies. So you don't really see the huge volatility. And I mean, we've seen the market go down, we've seen the market come up, but we don't see the dramatic day-to-day changes, 20% plus, et cetera, that you see or that you hear about in some of the press about the casino factor. That is out there for sure. But for the most part, in the companies that we own, they tend to be a bit more stable, longer term focus. I would say that the technology companies, you could argue, have seen a bit more influx of late, but that's been going on, a year or two. And again, the balance sheets are in good shape, the growth is in good shape. So when we look at those types of companies, the ones that we own that would be most susceptible if you had to pick a group, the qualities of the business are still intact, if not better. So we're pretty positive on those. We don't generally see in the companies we own, and that's how we like to look at things, a casino element. But in the market, absolutely, you had a very dramatic drop down and an even faster snapback up. So I definitely think there is a quote casino element in the overall market taking place right now.
And back to known unknowns. There's so much debt out there at the consumer level, the corporate level, the government level. Do you have any sense how this is all going to play out, or is that just for bigger brains down the road, or we just need to see it play out?
I don't know if it's for bigger brains down the road. It's definitely for down the road. But again, I don't think anyone's really thinking about that right now. I think people are thinking about how do we get through this, trying to solve the unknowns as best we can by time, by money, and then we'll figure it out afterwards. But it will definitely be something that we have to figure out afterwards. And the effects, I think, will be long lasting because the numbers involved are so big. But the most important thing, I think, is getting through these unknowns and the time it will take to do that.